Hey YouTube, how's it going? This is a response to British Invasion featuring on SexualFuturist channel. SexualFuturist is a channel which features a variety of people talking about different sexual topics, so it's quite an interesting channel because you get quite a good overview. And the topic in question is using porn ever cheating? And like straight out, obviously, as you say in your video, British Invasion, the answer to that is just no. Using porn and cheating are not the same thing. But there is, I think when you're in a relationship and using pornography, there are certainly elements of using porn which appear on a kind of spectrum of where, you know, more extreme version of that is cheating. And hear me out here, people. You say that you don't use porn, and it's British Invasion. You say you don't use porn, and no one ever believes you when you say that. And I find that quite sad, really, that that our construct of masculinity is so overly sexualized that we don't actually believe there are any men that don't fit into our conception of a man, essentially just a kind of like a horny, kind of a randy monkey that just sits around jacking off all the time, and beating shit up when he's not jacking off. And I find that very sad, and that's essentially partly why I'm a feminist. But you are talking in your video about the reason that using porn when you're in a relationship is, to you, uncomfortable is because your partner should be fulfilling those needs, and it's the word should rather than ideally would be, or whatever, that kind of implies, I think, a bit of a moral judgment in your video. Firstly, like, I'm not sure, that as a woman in a relationship with a man, I mean, I'm not at the moment, but as a woman who has recently been in a relationship with a man, that it was really my responsibility to kind of, maintain him sexually. I kind of think that harks back to quite an olden day view of a kind of, like a wife's responsibility to her husband. For a while, rape wasn't even considered, like a man to force himself on his wife wasn't considered to be rape because it was seen as her obligation to sexually fulfill him. But I think that also when you're talking about pornography, it gets to a point where I no longer, as a woman, really want to be the one to fulfill those needs for you. If you're into watching people shit on each other, or if you're really into anal sex, for example, which I don't really enjoy, I don't want to be responsible for fulfilling that part of your fantasy. But you do in your video talk about how pornography isn't, whilst it's not cheating, it is a kind of like a sexual and an emotional disloyalty, and that I think can definitely be the case. And I think it's the case essentially in the same sense that not everyone is in a monogamous relationship, and they're both open about the fact it's not a monogamous relationship. And if someone who is not in a monogamous relationship knowingly with their partner, doesn't share a monogamous relationship, has sex with someone else, then they're clearly not cheating. So for me, essentially, porn on a lesser scale becomes that kind of, falls into that cheating scale when the person that you're in a relationship with doesn't know about it. Because I don't use porn every time I jack off or anything, or I don't have like a huge collection of pornography, or it's not something that I do really regularly, but I occasionally use pornography to masturbate for a particular experience, like a masturbator experience that is different from when I read erotica, or for when I just use my imagination, or for when I just started off horny and that's why I'm there, jacking off in the first place, and I didn't even need any stimulation. But I do occasionally use pornography, so I'm not someone that's really anti-porn, or I'm definitely anti a lot of the depictions in pornography, and the treatment of women in pornography, and the health of, the conditions under which sex workers work. I have opposition to all of those things. But I use pornography myself. It's not, I don't see it as, essentially as a big deal. But for me what it was like, okay, I almost made an entire video here without talking about my ex-boyfriend, but for me what it was I told him that I'm cool with the use of pornography. I use pornography. I implied that he's a bloke, so he probably does use pornography, and to come clean about it. And he said, no. So there I am, sitting on his laptop 5 months into our relationship, but I find a whole load of course. I find, by typing sex into the startup menu search bar, I find his porn. So I've just laughed at him because I was like, this is so you didn't even attempt to hide this. But I was saying to him, hey, don't worry about it, you know, and how often do you use pornography? He's like, oh, really not very often, you know, I was like, oh, that's cool, just, like, tell me about it. Because usually when I would, like, he would, like, go to work or whatever, I was unemployed after I graduated, and he would go off to work, and when he got back, I'd be like, what have you done today? I was like, oh, watch this, you know, I made a YouTube video and I jacked off to some, you know, lesbian porn or whatever. And I usually would just drop it in there, because I wanted him to know that it wasn't something that I felt I was doing behind his back or kind of cheating on him. Unfortunately, after this 5-month argument that we had over this pornography, and in which I said it's totally cool if you use pornography, but can you please let me know about it? Next time I went to use his laptop, I noticed that the internet history every time I closed the box was clearing. So it had no internet history every time you closed down Internet Explorer or whatever it was. I mean, we were never going to be together for long anyway, were we? I could never love a man that uses Internet Explorer. Get with the programme. Anyway, so he had obviously enabled something on his laptop so that whatever internet sites he went to would be cleared off of his browser whenever he closed the window, which is a fucking waste of his time, because surely everyone that, you know, uses Google Chrome knows how to open an incognito window, everyone over the age of 13 anyway. The fact of the matter was, though, that through this I kind of had another big discussion with him, and he admitted that he had, you know, definitely been using pornography. It was about 3 times a week, so let's make that 5 or 6 times a week. And it made me feel really betrayed. And the reason that it made me feel really betrayed is because I'd been so open. I'd been like the coolest girlfriend in the world. I'd been like, hey, it's not, you know, it's cool, I'm bisexual, we can watch porn together, I'm not, you know, you know, I get it, I get the porn thing, just don't lie to me about it. And the fact that he wasn't open with me about it made me feel like he wanted to keep an entire part of his sexuality a secret from me. And maybe he did want to do that, and maybe that's okay in a relationship, but I still think you need to discuss it with the person. You need to explain that's what you're doing, you know, that this part of your sexuality, you don't feel it's something you want to share with the person, it's something, you know, and it made me feel like the secrecy was part of it. Anyway, the reason why I'm talking about pornography on a scale of cheating is because I think that, you know, progressively as you move from pornography towards cheating, there is a kind of spectrum, which is like, you know, initially you're looking at pictures and videos of people online, and then maybe you're using live webcams, and then maybe you're chatting to people that are using live webcams. In fact, in which case you're kind of having an interaction on a sexual basis with someone that isn't the person you're in a supposedly monogamous relationship with. And then maybe beyond that, I mean, what's the difference between using pornography and going to a strip club, you know? But the woman's there dancing naked in real life, or the woman's there naked on the videos. You're not touching. You didn't induce her to get naked, so how is it not, you know, how is that cheating sort of thing? I can see that argument. And then, you know, a step further from visiting strip clubs, I suppose, is you know, it becomes cheating after that. It's like paying for sexual favours from sex workers, or, you know, making out with people that you meet in bars, or having, you know, full-blown affairs is the kind of end of that spectrum. But as I say, it's interesting that that entire spectrum, with the knowledge of the other person, you know, with the addition of just the other person in the relationship knowing about it, no longer is, you know, cheating or emotional or sexual betrayal. You know, it's just an agreed kind of act between 2 consenting adults, or more, which is fine. So anyway, yeah, I know I did. I felt very, you know, I think it's pornography, particularly as a, you know, if I can make a contribution to what you've said, British Invasion as a woman, is I think it's quite difficult for women in relationships to discover. And, well, to firstly, as you say, like, everyone assumes that you use porn, so we would assume that everyone, you know, we all assume that our boyfriends use porn. It almost feels like you're not allowed to argue with that idea, or it's not really even up for discussion, in the way that we kind of have this cultural acceptance of both pornography and male like uncontrollable sexuality, that men can't be expected to behave in a moral way when it comes to sex because they're just like dogs and blah blah blah. Completely anti-male image that we have, anti-intellectual image that we have of men. I don't remember what my point was. God, it's really annoying not having a short-term memory. I've been smoking quite a lot of pot recently. Oh, but my views as a woman also, obviously, it's really, even a kind of very sexually confident woman, I think, is going to feel slightly, you know, insecure in the face of these kind of like cartoon women, you know, that have surgery and everything to make themselves supposedly what men want. And like, how could you ever really compete with that? And like, a woman that's willing to get fucked by 6 guys on video and get cum all over and stuff, how can you as a single normal, average-looking woman really compete with that level of kind of sexual exposure. I also think that the use of pornography has affected my sex life. I can tell, like, over the last 10 years when internet pornography has become more and more prevalent. Because back in my day, you used to still buy videos, like when you were 14 or 15, we still had videos. We used to sit around watching porn together. Like, I used to hang out with guys, and we'd sit around, me and these, like, kind of 6 15-year-old boys, we'd all sit around kind of watching porn and talking about it, because I was bisexual, and girls were really homophobic in my school, so I kind of hung around with men a lot. And kind of fitted into quite a classically male kind of sexual paradigm when I was with that group. Once again, I've lost my point. Pornography, though. Wait, pornography is the point, right? But over time, the type of things that men will do to me in the bedroom have shifted and changed. Particularly anal penetration, not necessarily, phallic penetration, but things like digital penetration of your anus and things like that, that perhaps used to be taboo, or used to be things that people did that were kinky in a relationship, or used to be not, they used to be things that people did to sex up quite a long-term relationship they were having, in a trusting kind of relationship that they're already having. Nowadays, things like having a finger just suddenly appear in your ass, that can happen like the first or second time that you have sex with someone. And to me, that kind of that's an effect of pornography. I think that a lot of the men I've been with don't really have that, aren't very sexually satisfying to me as a woman, once again, because the whole notion of what good sex is comes from pornography. And my final kind of opposition, I suppose, to pornography, not opposition, but my final criticism of pornography, is that I find it very spiritually bereft. I don't enjoy the picture it paints of us as human beings. I find having sex in a loving way, and having sex in an emotionally giving, caring way, highly arousing. And I'm disappointed that there doesn't seem to be any trope in pornography. I suppose maybe the girlfriend experience thing, but I find it disappointing that there don't seem to be any, the porn buying audience of men don't seem to have any interest in, like, any kind of intimate connection with the person they're watching on screen, or have any interest in the person themselves. Anyway, yeah, some thoughts on pornography, and what do you think, guys? And, is pornography the same as cheating, as the question has been posed? And I'd love to hear your comments, and I hope you're all well. Thanks, bye.